You're listening to the Study Podcast with Dr. Paul Wegner. I'm your host, Tyler Sanders, and I'm here with Dr. Paul Wegner. He's going to give us the Hebrew word of the day for the book of Micah.
Yeah, we're in the book of Micah, and we're going to actually do his name because I think his name is a play on the words. I got it from Micah 7:18, where it starts off, "Who is a God like you?" And it's like, I'm wondering if Micah is a shortened form of that, because it takes out the name God and then probably has the suffix there. But it's a shortened form of it, I think. Anyway, but it's kind of interesting because it's we always hear that phrase, "Who is a God like you?" But it goes on and says, "Who pardons iniquity and passes over rebellious acts of the remnant of his possession. He does not retain his anger forever because he delights in unchanging love." So it goes on and explains how there's not any other God like him in all those ways. So I thought that's kind of fun. So here's the name Micah, the one here at the top, Micah or Micah, and or Micah probably, and then down here is the "who is like Mikael Kamoka." So who is a God like you? So I think it's a shortened form of it. So. Yeah. Okay, now I got another word for you because anymore we can't just do one.
I know, we can never just do one.
Yeah. All right. And it's the word for incurable. And I think we've talked about this before, but it says that Israel's sin is incurable. Now remember, we're talking about the prophets, and we're in the place where it gets to the point where before long they're going to go into exile. So I think what's going on, it's talking about their sin or their wound being incurable, meaning they got to such a level it can't be taken care of. So it's going to have to be punishable by exile. So we get it in Micah. Now remember, Micah, we don't know the exact date of it exactly, but it says it's in the time of Hezekiah, and I think even Jotham. So that would put it like the end of the 700s. We know the exiles like at the end, at this end of the 600s, basically. And Jeremiah actually uses the same term and says that his wound is incurable. So both Micah in chapter 1, verse 9, and Jeremiah 15:18 use the same term. So about 100 years apart, now Jeremiah is right at the door of the exile. And so, it's just reminding him once again, it's going to happen because the sin can't be taken care of. You guys have given into it for so long and you haven't repented. So now it's going to be punishable. So it's kind of interesting. I figure you want to know how to say this word.
I do, yeah.
All right. It's Anusha, and it means incurable.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
No, that would probably be a death sentence in the ancient world, right?
That's right. That means that now God's going to punish them.
Yeah.
So, okay. So that's Micah. Now we'll get into what is it like. So I titled it "Who is like Yahweh," because that seems to be the key. And it goes, it's anywhere. The introduction says it's anywhere from, in Micah 1, it's from Jotham's time to Hezekiah's time. Now that's a broad time period, because Jotham is anywhere from about 750 to 731, somewhere in there. And Hezekiah is 715 through about 686. So there's a pretty broad time, almost not quite 100 years, but almost,
close,
good 70 years
about or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a good long time. And then at least the author claims to be Micah. The audience is both Israel and Judah. So we know it's got to be before 722, when the northern kingdom gets taken away. So that helps us some. And then the purpose, the people during this time are fairly well off, and thus they're even acting more wickedly. So Micah says if they do not repent and turn back to God, punishment is coming. a lot of times these prophets, that's their goal, is to try to convince these people it's time to, get away from their sin and come back to God. And if they don't, exile's coming, pretty much, or at least punishment. Sometimes they know it's exile, sometimes they don't. Okay. So anyway, that's this. The book is kind of neat because it's in a structure. I'll show you in a minute, but it's got like 4 major parts. An introduction, coming judgment, and future restoration. The first part. Then there's a present leaders denounced, but righteous king promised in chapter 3:1-5, and then it's got one more section in the last part, 6-7. And it's God delivers Israel from her corruption. So remember, we talked about there being a lot of judgment in these these pre-exilic prophets, when it's before that, warning them that judgment's coming. But there's always a little message of restoration, and that's this one. This chapters 6 and 7 is pretty much talking about the restoration that's going to happen. Okay. So that's our structure. Okay, have you ever, you probably know what a chiasm is.
I know all about chiasms.
All right, why don't you tell us about chiasms?
Well, chi comes from X, right? That's kind of like the Greek term for like
letter.
So letter, yeah, right. So really what's happening in a chiasm, that's it's kind of like a grammatical structure, or maybe even like a genre structure. We kind of say it's like they can be huge, but there's like everything's leading to the middle, and you have the first thing and the last thing somehow coordinate or have something to do with each other, and then as you go further in, those pieces continue to kind of match up in some kind of way.
Match up. Good. Okay, now I'm going to make a palistrophe is just like a chiasm, only has a lot more units. So technically, this is a palistrophe because it has 3 units coming into the middle and then 3 units coming out. But it starts off with Micah proclaiming judgment against Israel. The matching section is in chapter 7, where Micah's hope is in Yahweh's deliverance, or he hopes in Yahweh's deliverance. Then in chapter 2, there's a woe oracle. And in chapter 7, 1-6, there's a woe oracle. And then in chapter 3, Micah proclaims Yahweh's message. And then 6, also Micah proclaims Yahweh's message. And then in the middle, and usually what happens, the middle part's the most important. So we've got it talked about the last days there. And that one has I think a really interesting structure that I want to show you later. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think the whole book has kind of a helpful structure to keep us, and then especially the middle part does. Okay.
Yeah. It's always good to find these. I think they can be hard to see across the whole book. But it does seem like it's such a common thing in the Bible. And we have a lot of stuff in modern writing, just structures we use to help indicate what's important and what's not important. I mean, I know if you're doing like news writing, the very first thing is the most important thing. You do one sentence that just explains the situation or kind of gives you the thing, and then you kind of order it down as you go down. It gets less important. And this is similar. It's a different shape, but a chiasm kind of gives you an indicator of like what is the main point, right?
I was just going to ask you, why would an author do this? And I think you've just explained it real well. He's trying to bring across an idea. And so if you can see a structure starting to happen, it's going to now start to make some sense. Okay, good. All right. Okay, so it's in the 700, somewhere in there. Okay, and it's a very productive time. The problem is the rich are getting richer and the poor poorer, and what's happening is the rich are taking advantage of the poor. So just like in Hosea's time, same thing is happening in Micah's time. Okay, and then Micah means. I put who is like you. That's possible. It may be who are you or something like that. Also, depending on whether that the word could be either translated either way. But I'm assuming it's a shortened form for that Micah 7:18, And if so, it takes the divine name out, but then shortens the name. So the message for sure is for both Israel and Judah. And here's Micah 1 says, the word of the Lord which came to Micah of Moresheth in the days of Jotham, Ahaz, Hezekiah, kings of Judah, which he saw concerning Samaria and Jerusalem. So that actually helps us. We know that's before 722, right? Because once 722 happens, it doesn't do any good to have a message for Samaria, because they've already gone into exile. So
right.
I think that's helpful. All right, and then his town is something called Moresheth Gath. We don't know what Moresheth necessarily means, but Gath means wine press. And my guess is that there were a lot of wine presses, so they probably had multiple names to make sure you knew which wine press it was. I think that's what's going on here. The theological concept is that God is immanent in history. And that's, you'll see that because almost all the way through the book, God is acting and telling you what's going on and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that becomes really interesting. And then the next part here is I think interesting. Jeremiah actually quotes a part from Micah. So now remember, Micah's in the 700s, Jeremiah's in the 600s. So what's going on? In fact, let me get to the part. He says, her leaders pronounce judgment for a bribe, her priests instruct for a price, and her prophets divine for money. Yet they lean on the Lord, saying, is not the Lord in our midst? Calamity will not come upon us. So do you see what they're relying on God to help them, and yet they're ripping people off and they're divining for money and stuff like that. So, okay. Therefore, on account of you, Zion will be plowed as a field. Jerusalem will be a heap of ruins, and the mountain of the temple will become high places of the forest. So you can see he's saying Jerusalem is going to be destroyed because of your wickedness. Yeah. Okay. So now when Jeremiah tries doing something like that, so in Jeremiah 26, he's pronouncing judgment against Jerusalem, and he quotes, and they want to kill him for it. So he quotes Micah passage and says, well, wait a minute, you guys. Micah said almost the same things as I am telling you, and nothing happened to him. So here, let me read it to you. Then Jeremiah spoke to all the officials and to all the people, saying, the Lord sent me to prophesy against this house and against this city, all the words which you have heard. Now, therefore, amend your ways and your deeds and obey the voice of the Lord your God, and the Lord will change his mind about the misfortune he has pronounced against you. But as for me, behold, I am in your hands. Do to me as is good and right in your eyes. Only know for certain that if you put me to death, you will bring innocent blood on yourselves and on the city and on its inhabitants. For truly the Lord has sent me to you to speak these words in your hearing. Then the officials and all the people said to the priests and to the prophets, no death sentence for this man, for he has spoken to us in the name of the Lord our God. Then some of the elders of the land rose up and spoke to the assembly of the people, saying, Micah of Moresheth prophesied in the days of Hezekiah, king of Judah, and he spoke to all the people of Judah, saying, thus the Lord of hosts has said, Zion will be plowed as a field, and Jerusalem will become ruins, and the mountains of the house of the as high places of the forest. Did Hezekiah, king of Judah, and all Judah put him to death? Did he not fear the Lord and entreat the favor of the Lord? And the Lord changed his mind about the misfortune which he had pronounced against them. But we are committing a great evil against ourselves. So, do you see? Very rarely do you ever get one Old Testament person quoting another Old Testament person, but you've got one here, and I think this is so neat, and it actually worked. It saved Jeremiah's life. Yeah. So that's really neat. You very rarely ever see something like this happen.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Okay. Yeah, I thought you should see that.
Well, it's great too that it says it, right? It's like just like Micah said. That's kind of interesting. You know, it's not just kind of a reference back or something to the idea. It's really like Micah said this, you know.
Yeah, and it worked. I mean, it was enough to spare Jeremiah's life.
Yeah.
Okay. The introduction, it gives you, almost all these prophets do it the same way. They tell you which kings of Israel and Judah were during the time of their prophecies. And then this one goes a little further and says that it's directed both to Israel or Jerusalem and Samaria. So you've got both capitals talked about in that verse.
Mm-hmm.
Now he goes on, "Hear, O peoples, all of you listen, O earth, and all that it contains, and let the Lord God be witness against you, the Lord from his holy temple. For behold, the Lord is coming forth from his place, and he will come down and tread on the high places of the earth." Um, Remember I told you that God was immanent. One of the theological implications of this book is that God's immanent in history. That's probably the best verse to tell you that. Here's God coming down, and he's going to destroy these places. And it says he's going to tread on the high places. Remember the high places where the Baal prophets were worshipped? Right. Yeah. So he's going to step on those high places and smash them, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So it's good. I think that's a neat way of saying it. Okay, now after that was basically the introduction. You've got judgment talked about in the rest of chapter 1 and into chapter 2. It talks about Samaria being destroyed and becoming a heap of ruins. We've already talked about that. It's got a lament over Judah. So it even says it's going to go down even into Judah. Let me just show you the English passages there. Okay, 5-9 says this. All of this is for the rebellion of Jacob and for the sin of the house of Israel. What is the rebellion of Jacob? Is it not Samaria? What is the high place of Judah? Is it not Jerusalem? Let me just stop there. Do you see what that's saying? That these two, and now, first of all, it's kind of neat because both Samaria and Jerusalem are on hills. So when it calls them the high places, it's like it's like a double play on words. Not only are they places where Baal's worshipped, but they are on high places too.
Yeah.
So
that's literally true as well.
Yeah. Okay, now verse 6. "For I will make Samaria a heap of ruins in the open country, planting places for a vineyard. I will pour her stones down into the valley and lay bare her foundations. All of her idols will be smashed, and all of her earnings will be burned with fire." Now, the idols smashed, but when it says her earnings, he keeps calling them the harlot's wages or harlot's earnings, because she's getting them by worshiping false gods. And so he says that she's being a harlot to him, just like in Hosea, kind of. Okay. Okay. I'll start at 7. "All her idols will be smashed, and all her earnings will be burned with fire, and all of her images will be made desolate. For she collected them from a harlot's earnings, and to the earnings of a harlot they will return." So just like we talked about in Hosea, Micah's pretty much saying the same thing. Yeah. "Because of this, I will lament and wail. I must go barefoot and naked." Now, remember, later on, you're going to hear Isaiah doing that too, going around mourning. They call it barefoot and naked. Well, it sounds like Micah did it too. My guess is, again, he's trying to get their attention to try to get them to repent. And so they're doing stuff like you would never expect a prophet to do, in hopes that that'll get their attention and they'll turn back to God. Okay, "I will make a lament like the jackals and a mourning like the ostriches, for her wound is incurable." There's that phrase. For it has come to Judah. It has reached even to the gate of my people, even to Jerusalem. So that's kind of, it's basically saying, okay, it's bad enough that it started in Samaria and it's pretty much infiltrated the northern kingdom. But now he says, but it's now coming even into Judah and down even to the gate of my people, Jerusalem. So he's saying, now, if you could have kept your sin to yourself, but what you've done is you've brought it now into to rest of my people. So you can see he's fairly upset with Israel for bringing sin in and then spreading it all the way through the country. So, okay. All right. Next one. In the book of Micah, there's a whole bunch of, they're called onomatopoeias or plays on words or puns. There's a lot of different different terms for them. So some of the best ones are like in 110, it says, at Beth El Rapha, that means house of dust. Then it says, roll yourself in the dust. Yeah. So it takes that, the word dust and roll it. Okay, then in 114, the daughter of Agzib will become a deception. The word Agzib means deception. Okay, then there's some lesser puns. Go on your way, inhabitants of Saphir. That means pleasantness or something like that. In shameful nakedness. So it's like a reverse there as a contrast.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the inhabitants of Za'an means going out, will not go forth.
Oh, that's good.
And then and then in 111 there's another one, Beth Ezel. Ezel means to support or hold up something. So house of support, it says he will take away its support. So yeah, this just like my father-in-law, he always used to love these puns, and so it looks like Micah has a similar problem. He'll use these Hebrew words that are like plays on words all the way through the book.
Yeah.
Again, trying to get their attention in hopes that they'll turn from their sin.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, and a lot of these are opposites too. I guess some of them are the same, like the house of dust, roll in the dust, and the house of dust. Some are the same, but the opposites is kind of a way to make a really just hammering a point, you know?
Yeah. Oh, good job. All right. Then the second section is a lament over Judah. So here's what it says there. This is Micah 1:13 through 16. Harness the chariot to the team of horses, O inhabitants of Lachish. She was the beginning of sin to the daughter of Zion. Let me try to explain that, and then I'll come back. Almost certainly the horses to the chariots were probably for the sun god Re, because the sun god Re would take his chariot and go across the sky, supposedly.
Yeah.
So it says that that Lachish was the beginning of the sin of the daughter of Zion. So apparently, Lachish is closer to Egypt than some of the other cities. So my guess is they brought the horses to Lachish, and then from there, they were taken through the country to again worshiping this god Re, I assume.
Yeah.
Okay, so because you were found. Because in you were found the rebellious acts of Israel. Therefore, you will give parting gifts on behalf of Moresheth Gath. That's, again, referring to a place where he's from. The house of Agzib will become a deception to the kings of Israel. Make yourself bald and cut off your hair because of the children of your delight. Extend your baldness like an eagle, for they will go from you into exile. So here he makes it real clear, exile's coming. And he's already told them that their wound was incurable. Now he explains what that means. You guys are leaving. Usually when it talks about baldness is from working hard that it rubs the hair off your skin.
Oh,
and
okay.
So it sounds like what's going to happen is they're going to be put under real severe pressure and stuff like that, and then be taken off into captivity.
Yeah.
So again, he's got a play on words. There's the picture of the sun god.
Oh yeah. Okay.
With their horses. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Then in chapter 5, we've got a woe pronounced. Remember I told you in the structure there was a woe
the woe oracles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's talking about the rich people. Here's what it says. Woe to those who scheme iniquity and who work out evil on their beds. When morning comes, they do it, for it is in their power, the power of their hands. So they're powerful enough that when they make these schemes to rip off other people, they can actually do it. They covet fields and then seize them. And houses and take them away. They rob a man in his house, a man in his inheritance. Remember back then, your house basically, or your land, was your inheritance. So if you took that away, you had no way of making a living. And so that's what it's saying. You've ripped this person off, and now they're going to starve. Therefore, thus says the Lord, behold, I am planning evil. I'm planning against this family a calamity from which you cannot remove your necks, and you will not walk haughtily, for it will be an evil time. So he's telling them again, warning them that judgment's coming, and that judgment we know is exile.
Right.
Okay, now the last section of chapter 2 is talking about the false prophets, and it's funny because they tell them that they want to hear their lies. They don't want to hear the truth. They want to hear their lies.
Right.
Okay, on that day they will take up against you a taunt and utter a bitter lamentation, and say, "We are completely destroyed. He exchanges a portion of my people. How he removes it from me. To the apostate he apportions our land." Well, that's true, but it's because they did it. They gave it up, right? They went into sin, and because they wouldn't repent, God did give their land over to, he calls them the apostates. So Assyria did take them over, but it was their own fault. Okay, now the next one is a little harder to understand. Therefore, you will have no one stretching a measuring line for you by lot in the assembly of the Lord. You have any idea what that means?
Well, that's kind of strange. I mean, I know they would use, I mean, I'm assuming that's kind of like a plumbing line, kind of like we'd use in construction to kind of make sure things are straight or kind of square, right?
And usually measuring was the first step in building something. So what it's saying is you won't have anybody measuring to build up in the Lord's assembly, meaning they've got no one to actually help them. Yeah.
Right.
So so it means that they're going to be destroyed, and there's not going to be anyone to restore them. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And then verse 6, do not speak out. So they speak out. But if they do not speak out concerning these things, reproaches will not be turned back. When it says they tell the prophets, don't speak, because we don't want to hear what you're saying. But he's saying, but if we don't speak, there's no way to turn you back from the wickedness that you're in. Okay. Yeah. Verse 7, it is being said, O house of Jacob, is the spirit of the Lord impatient? Are these his doings? Do not my words do good to those who walk uprightly? So I think what they're saying when it says, "Is this the Lord? Is a spirit of the Lord impatient?" He's punishing us before we deserve it, or something like that. You know, he's been impatient. He wants to punish us. And what he's saying, that I think that last word is God saying, "Well, wait a minute. If you're doing the right thing, my words actually would be a help to you. But because you're not doing the right thing, of course it sounds like I'm punishing you."
Right.
Because I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, this next one is really good. Okay. I'm going to explain it first, and then I'm going to show you the passage so you can see what's going on. Okay. And then we'll talk about it. Okay. Verses 8 and 9 say, you take the robe off the fellow Israelite, even from those returning from war. So here's people going out to fight a battle for you to keep you guys alive, and you're ripping their robes off. Okay, so you're stealing from them. And then you evict the people, the women of my people from her children. You take my splendor forever. We'll talk about that in a minute, but do you see what's happening? And it may be connected. Here's these people going off to war to fight for you, to keep you alive, and you're kicking their wives out of their houses because they can't afford now to pay for them, right? Because their husbands are gone and they can't work. Yeah. They're off trying to save your life. So do you see what I put on here? Israel's become their own worst enemy. They're ripping off people, and because they're doing that, you're attacking your own people even. Yeah. Okay, now let me show you what the Hebrew or the actual text says. Recently, my people have risen up as an enemy. And now, that's interesting. He's calling his own people the enemy to themselves. Okay. Yeah. You strip the robe off the garment from unsuspecting passersby, from those returning from war. So it could be that you're ripping people off for sure. You're taking their robes, but it could even be from those who are returning from war. So that's a double whammy. Okay. Yeah. Now here's the next phrase: the women of my people you evict, each from her pleasant house. From her children you take my splendor forever. What do you think that last phrase means? From her children, you take my splendor forever.
It's interesting. I almost wonder if like it's saying like whenever you evict, a wife and the kids while the husband's at war or whatever's happening, you're actually creating a barrier between me and the children because they're having this extreme punishment essentially. They'll never know me. Is that the
and why would they never know you? Why would it be no? And you take my splendor, meaning the glory of God or his majesty or something like that. You take them away from them forever.
Yeah, I would think there's either they're losing kind of somehow like God's provision, like they're going to live a really difficult life, or potentially they could even die, right?
Okay. All right. So let's reverse it. Let's say that these people would allow. Okay, so their husbands are going off to war. You let them stay in there until they can get back on their feet. Then what's happening is the children realize, oh, our God's provided for us. We've got a place to stay and all that. You reverse that. You take them out. You kick them out where there's no way that they can actually take care of you. What it does is it makes it look like God can't provide for us. And the bad thing is you're doing it to your own people. So you're kicking off these women who their husbands are out trying to protect you. And what you just done is you've made it so that that little boy or that little girl thinks that God hasn't supplied their needs. And so why would they trust in a God that can't take care of us?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So do you realize how serious that is? With that saying, there's going to be a whole generation that could care less about God because he couldn't even take care of my mom when she was in a dire situation.
Right.
Yeah. Where if these people would have done it right, they could have not only provided for that woman, but she could have also let them know that God has supplied our needs. So the children have a good opinion of the God that's taking care of them.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's amazing. That's in one sense, that's a real serious charge. And it makes total sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if that's true, so now we have to think about modern day today. How do we take care of that? Well, my guess is that you have to be really careful when you use the church's money to actually help people stay in their homes and stuff like that. Not just for the woman or the family who's being protected and provided for, but also for those children that are coming up years later that may have, because you've helped them out in a time of need. Now they see the church or or your God as a real help to you.
Yeah, right.
And so they have a favorable opinion of your God in later years.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, and it's interesting. It's a really kind of complex thought,
Yeah.
But I think that would still be something that's true kind of universally that, if you act, I think that's still true for us today as Christians. If we treat other Christians poorly, we hurt them, whatever it is, like you're kind of in some ways training the next generation to not believe. You're telling them that there's nothing real here,
Yeah. Yeah.
It's brutal.
Isn't that something? Yeah. So that's an amazing passage, I think, and it has ramifications for us today, I think.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. I thought it's brilliant. I think now the false prophets are denounced again. All right. This one's funny. Verse 11. If a man walking after the wind and falsehood had told lies and said, I will speak to you concerning wine and liquor, he would be a spokesman to this people. So he's saying, the people that are worthless, that I have totally false ideas and stuff like that. These would be spokesmen to the people of Israel because they're so corrupt and so wicked. Yeah, that one's very interesting. That might be Micah again jabbing them to make sure they get it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Now remember we talked. So you've in these first, I assume 2 chapters, we've had an awful lot of judgment and stuff like that, how wicked they are. This is the little amount of hope in the end of chapter 2. So there's 2 verses that are, I think, a little amount of hope to say that one of these days I'm going to restore you. He talks about God's going to assemble Israel and gather the remnant in verse 12. He says he's going to shepherd them and they're going to be numerous. And then he talks about God and the king going before them. He calls him the breaker. I'm assuming that breaker is God who goes before them and breaks the way. All right, now let's look at the passage. I will surely assemble all of you, Jacob, and I will surely gather the remnant of Israel. I will put them together like sheep in a fold, like a flock in the midst of the pasture. They will be noisy with men. Do you know what that means? They will be noisy with men.
Probably like there's going to be a lot, right?
Yeah, exactly. Good. Okay, the breaker goes before them. They break out, pass through the gate, and go out by it. So their king goes before them, and the Lord is at their head. So I think what this is talking about, that breaker is the breaker that goes ahead and breaks through the walls and any place where that would keep them confined. And then it says their king goes before them. So I assume it's God doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's the first 2 chapters. Now we're into chapter 3, and chapter 3 through 5 is kind of the main section in the middle. And it's got some real interesting things. First, he talks about the indictments against them. He starts with the leaders and says they have no justice there. Then he goes against the false prophets and say they love money. Okay. And then goes after corrupt leaders and says that they're actually destroying their own people. Okay. All right. Let's look at what the text says. So here it says, and he says, hear now, heads of Jacob. So that's the first ones, the leaders he's talking about, and rulers of the house of Israel. Is it not for you to know justice? You who hate good and love evil, who tear off their skin from them and their flesh from their bones, who eat the flesh of my people and strip off the skin from them and break their bones and chop them up as in a pot and as meat in a kettle. Then they will cry out to the Lord, but he will not answer them. Instead, he will hide his face from them at the time because they have practiced evil deeds. Okay, do you see what they're saying? He's saying that the rich leaders, the leaders there, are ripping off the poor. He even talks about skinning their people.
Yeah.
So it's a very visual picture of what these rich leaders are doing to their people. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it almost seems to me like they're treating the people like animals or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds good. Sounds bad, but that's what they're doing.
Right.
Okay. Okay. So that's the leaders. The next one will be the false prophets.
Mm-hmm.
Come on. Okay. Thus says the Lord concerning the prophets who lead my people astray. When they have something to bite with their teeth, they cry peace. But against him who puts nothing in their mouths, they declare holy war. Do you get that? So if you pay them off, they're real good to you. But if you don't pay them off, they're going to declare holy war. Yeah. Okay. Therefore, it will be night for you without vision and darkness for you without divination. The sun will go down on the prophets and the day will become dark over them. The seers will be ashamed and the diviners will be embarrassed. Indeed, they will all cover their mouths because there is no answer from God. Usually covering their mouths was kind of like an embarrassment. So I think that's what that is getting at. On the other hand, I am filled with the power and with the Spirit of the Lord. So here's Micah, on the other hand. The false prophets are embarrassed because they don't hear from God. Micah, on the other hand, is filled with the Spirit of God. With justice and courage to make known to Jacob his rebellious acts and to lead even to Israel his sin. So here, they don't like to hear what Micah's saying, but he's the only one that's actually telling them the truth.
Right.
All right, we got one more. All right, so this one is the corrupt leaders. Now hear this, O heads of the house of Jacob and rulers of the house of Israel, who abhor justice and twist everything that is straight, who build Zion with bloodshed and Jerusalem with violent injustice. So I guess I think what that's saying is they're building up Zion by killing people or stealing stuff from them and stuff like that. So you can see that they're doing it totally wrong. Her leaders pronounce judgment for a bribe, her priests instruct for a price, and her prophets divine for money. Yet they lean on the Lord, saying, is not the Lord in our midst? Calamity will not come upon us. Therefore, on account of you, Zion will be plowed as a field, Jerusalem will become a heap of ruins, and the mountain of the temple will become a high place of the forest. So that was that quote we had before. But do you see what it's in context? It makes perfect sense, doesn't it? He's saying, because you guys have been so wicked and have ripped people off and all of that, and you know, your judgment is coming, and Jerusalem is going to suffer the consequences of it.
Right.
Okay, so that's that section. Now the next one is the middle. Remember, we had that middle part that's talking about the future, most of it. Can you look at Micah? I don't know if you have your Bible, but in Micah 4, 1 through 3, that part is quoted in Isaiah chapter 2, 2 through 4. So it's got the same exact phrase. I think it's just a few letters different, okay, of the whole section. And it says, it will come about in the last days that the mountain of the house of the Lord will be established as the chief of the mountains. So you can tell we've just switched, right? It talked about in the present what the wickedness was like. Now he's talking about the restoration that God's got. He will be raised above the hills, and the peoples will stream to it. Many nations will come and say, come and let us go up to the house of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob, that he may teach us about his ways, that we may walk in his paths. For from Zion will go forth the law, even the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. Now, it actually stops there. Later we'll come back and talk about this, but that's the section that is quoted there. But look at the end, after the quote, the next part is, and they will hammer their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks.
Right.
Do you get what that's meaning?
Yeah, we're not going to be in danger of war anymore. We're going to be in a time of prosperity, I would assume. Like, we're going to have to turn all of our weapons into like tools to help us farm.
Yes, good. Okay, then it goes on. Nation will not lift up sword against nation. Never again will they train for war. Each of them will sit under his vine and under his fig tree, with no one to make them afraid, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken. So instead of going out to war, now they're going to be sitting at home at peace and being able to eat their food and all that safely.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I think I have a summary here. So in the last days, the nations will come to Zion. Many will want to know God's ways. So they're going to, want to know his righteous ways, I'm assuming. God will judge nations. There's a time of peace and a time of blessing. That was what those swords into plowshares and stuff. A remnant from the outcasts, and God will reign in Zion. I didn't read the next part, but that's there's going to be a remnant from those outcasts, and they're going to God's going to reign there, and then Zion will be honored. So that's Micah's picture of the future for Israel. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's the same one that Isaiah had. We're going to see that soon. Okay. All right. Here's the best part. In chapters 4 and 5, you've got a structure here that's really, really helpful. It's got like a title in chapter 4:1 where it says it will come about in the last days. So it's setting kind of the parameters for you. Then it says in that day in chapter 4, verse 6, and that's future. As for you, 4:8, and that's future. Then it's got 3 nows, 4:9, 4:11, and 5:1, and those are all present and talking about the bad situation now. Then in 5:2, you've got future again, as for you, and then in 5:10, it will come about in that day, future. Now, you probably know about Micah 5:2, right?
Sure,
From you will come forth a ruler who will rule over my people. But you, Bethlehem, O Ephrathah, too little be among the clans of Judah. Remember that one? So that's a quote talking about Messiah, right?
Right.
Okay, look at 5:2. Notice it starts, but as for you, which is parallel to the one in 4:8.
Yeah.
So both of those are talking about future times, and it just gets done talking about the present time. So remember, so Micah 5:2 is talking about a future time, and I believe it's the Messiah that's going to come
Yeah.
and bring that
Sure. Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm trying to show you is that the structure itself actually sets you up to know whether it's talking about the present or the future.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Right. Right.
All right.
Yeah.
Now let's look at the text so you can actually see it. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So in Micah 4:8, it says, "In that day, declares the Lord, I will assemble the lame and gather the outcasts, even those whom I have afflicted. I will make the lame a remnant and the outcasts a strong nation. And the Lord will reign over them on Mount Zion from now and till forever." So you can clearly see that in that day is a future time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got a
Yeah. Yeah.
lame being made into an army and outcasts, a strong nation. Okay. All right. Now look at verse 8. "As for you, tower of the flock, hill of the daughter of Zion, to you will come forth, even the former glory will come, the kingdom of the daughter of Jerusalem." Okay, so it's talking about tower of the flock being, well, it goes on and says daughter of Jerusalem or of Zion, right? So we know
Yeah.
what it's talking about, but it says the former dominion is going to come. I'm assuming that's talking about the dominion during David and Solomon's time. That was the peak of the
Yeah.
kingdom,
Yeah.
right? So
Right.
I'm assuming that's what it's getting at. So one of these days, future, God's going to bring the great dominion that it used to have back to him. Okay.
Yeah. A restoration of the kingdom, basically.
Yep. Okay. Remember I told you there's 3 nows? So
Yeah.
it starts in verse 9. "Now, why do you cry so loudly? Is there no king among you, or has your counselor perished, that agony has gripped you like a woman in childbirth? Writhe and labor to give birth, daughter of Zion, like a woman in childbirth, for now you will go out of the city, dwell in the field, and go to Babylon." So you can see it's talking about exile, isn't it? So it says
Right.
they're going to be in such pain, it's almost going to be like you're in
Sure.
childbirth. It's going to be that
Right.
damaging. Okay.
Right.
But from there you'll be rescued. There the Lord will redeem you from the hand of your enemies. So that's the first now. The second one's in verse 11. "And now many nations have been assembled against you, who say, let her be polluted. Let her eyes gloat over Zion. But they do not know the thoughts of the Lord. They do not understand his purpose, for he has gathered them like sheaves to the threshing floor." So I'm assuming what he's saying. So what he's saying, their goal is to trounce Jerusalem. God's goal is he's going to gather them like sheaves to a threshing floor, meaning
Right.
he's bringing them there so he can destroy them. Okay.
Right.
My guess, at least in 701, that was probably at least the initial. If it's not the whole thing, 701 is when the Assyrians were destroyed, right? It's outside Jerusalem, and it clearly says that God did it. So if that's true, my guess that would fit just fine what's talking about here. But it may happen again. Who knows? I'm willing to leave that open. Okay, so verse 13 says, "Arise, thresh, daughter of Zion, for your horn I will make iron, and your hooves will be like bronze, that you may pulverize many nations, that you may devote to the Lord their unjust gain and the wealth to the Lord all the earth." So he's saying that go ahead and destroy all those other nations and bring their wealth to God.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now Micah 5:1 is the next one. "Now muster yourself in troops, daughter of troops. They have laid siege against us. With a rod they will smite the judge of Israel on the cheek." Now, at this point, the smiting the for sure it's either humiliating the Israelites, or smiting them could be even more damaging than just humiliation. Okay, but it says that they're going after to lay siege against Israel. Okay, okay, so you can tell future is really good for Israel. Present is really bad. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Now let's go to the next one. So we're now as for you, chapter 5, verse 2. But as for you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, too little be among the clans of Judah. From you will go forth for me to be ruler in Israel. So almost everybody, as far as I know, argues that this is a messianic passage, or one referring to the Messiah. It goes on. His goings forth are from long ago, from the days of eternity. So I assume that means he's been planned. At least he's been planned from long ago, or it might even mean that his goings forth, meaning not only planned, but this guy even lived long ago. It's at least possible. All right.
Right.
Therefore, he will give them up until a time when she who is in labor has borne a child. So it's actually talking about a child. Then the remainder of his brethren will return to the sons of Israel. What that means is that all the people that are, I assume it means present at his time, but also in the future, all the sons of Israel are going to be brought together to God.
Yeah.
So at least that's what I'm thinking it means. All right. And he will arise and shepherd his flock in the strength of the Lord, in the majesty of the name of the Lord his God. And they will remain at that time. He will be great to the ends of the earth. So again, it seems like it makes perfect sense. Now look at the next verse. This one will be our peace. Good. When the Assyrian invades our land, when he tramples on our citadels, when he rises, we will rise up against him 7 shepherds and 8 rulers of men, or leaders of men. They will shepherd the land of Assyria with the sword, and the land of Nimrod at the entrances. He would deliver us from the Assyrian when he attacks our land and when he tramples our territory. Do you just see what happened? We were talking about, but we were talking about Messiah, weren't we? In a totally different context. And now it talks about destruction of Assyria.
Right.
What is going on? Well, all right, let me see if I can show you. First of all, I want to make sure you see this. Remember, the vowel pointing can change a word to mean different things. This one clearly, the MT says he will go forth. If it's referring to a future person that's going to come forth and lead them, it must be talking about Messiah.
Yeah.
If you translate it as past tense, he has gone forth, or he went forth. That could refer to David. Okay. But even the Masoretes pointed it as a future tense, so that somebody in the future is coming to rule Israel, not in the past. Now, so a lot of my students will come to me and say, what's the best passage to use when you're talking to a Messianic or a Jew to help them to see the Messiah? And almost always they want to go to Isaiah 52 and 53, right? That talks about, clearly, I believe it's talking about the Messiah. But the Jewish people have a really good, they think a really good argument against that, meaning they think that Israel is the one who suffered for all the people. Okay, so they've already, in their mind, they've already got that, what they think, figured out. This is another one you could take them to, because this one, most Jewish people don't even know it's there, first of all, but then wouldn't know who it refers to. And it's clearly, the Masoretes argued it was future, not past. It's something in the future that's happening. So I think this would be a really good passage to take to them and show them that there's this future deliverer that's coming. Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure you knew that. Now, let's look at, so in Micah 5:2, it says, we've got a ruler coming over Israel, but he's coming from Bethlehem. Okay. Right. His birth was planned from long ago, and maybe he even lived for a long time. That's possible. Yep. Israel returned after his birth, so they're coming back. God's going to use him. And then the last one is he's going to deliver us from the Assyrians. Okay. All right. Let's look at that a minute. So what is going on? So in 701, there's no doubt God delivered the Israelites from the Assyrians, right? He came, and it says that the angel of the Lord came and killed 185,000 of their men. They woke up in the morning, they were all dead.
Yeah.
And then they went back home. So that's certainly a logical possibility. It could be 701, but it could also be talking about a future time. Okay. But how does that work? Well, my understanding is that a prophet looks into the future and he sees all these victories. He has no idea how much time is between them, but he knows they're in the future and they're all going to happen. What he doesn't know is that they're separated by sometimes hundreds of years. So the victory in 701 is when the Assyrians do get defeated and the Israelites were victorious. But it's right in the same context of a Messiah coming to rule over Israel and setting up the throne of David and all that. Well, that didn't come until Jesus. So if that's true, we've got like 700 years, depending on how early Micah is, but that's 700 years possibly before Jesus ever comes around. The 701 is when the Assyrians were punished and destroyed in Israel. This next time is that so we've got a whole bunch of positive things in the future that the prophet sees, and they're all true. The problem is he doesn't know how much time is between them. So he sees the one victory in 701 right next to the time when Messiah is coming and setting up his kingdom. But we know now there's 700 years at least between those.
Yeah. Okay.
Does that make some sense? So here's the prophet looking into the future. He sees all these positive things, but he doesn't know how much time is between them. And that's kind of what 1 Peter 1, 10 and 11 says. As to this salvation, the prophets who prophesied of the grace that would come to you made careful searches and inquiry, seeking to know what person or time the Spirit of Christ within them was indicating as he predicted the sufferings of Christ and the glories to follow. So they knew about the sufferings before that Christ was going to go through, then the glories that were coming after that, but they didn't know again how much time was after that. So my understanding is that's kind of how you understand these prophecies in the Old Testament. Some of them have a near fulfillment and then a more distant fulfillment. I've got it pictured like mountain ranges, because you can, when you see a mountain range, you see the tops of the mountains, but you have no idea how much time it would take to walk through those valleys to get there. Yeah. So I'm arguing that's what's happening here. He sees the positive things, but what he doesn't know is how much time is between them.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. That is one of the hardest things to understand in these. All right. Yeah. So we've just been through, and we're at the very last one in 5:10. Here's what it says. It will be in that day, so you already know it's future, right? Declares the Lord, that I will cut off your horses from among you and destroy your chariots. I will also cut off the cities of your land and tear down all your fortifications. I will cut off sorceries from your hand, and you will have fortune tellers no more. I will cut off the carved images and your sacred pillars from among you, so that you will no longer bow down to the work of your hands. I will root out your Asherim, and those are the Baal and Asherah were the two gods at that time, from among you, and destroy your cities. And I will execute vengeance in anger and wrath on the nations that have not obeyed. So he's actually got what sounds like a little of both. There'll be a time in that day when there's going to be some really positive things that are happening. He's going to cut off carved images and all that, and clean, morally take care of you. But he's also going to execute judgment on the wicked people.
Right.
Does that make sense? So what you just saw is that here's Micah's vision of what's taking place in the future. You'll have a time of punishment up to it, but there's going to be a purging, and then there's going to be this time of great blessing for the nation of Israel. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We'll talk about that. My understanding is that ultimately that's going to work out as not necessarily the nation of Israel, but a remnant from the nation of Israel. And I would argue that we're going to, in about 700 BC, the prophets start talking about a remnant. Micah is the first one that starts talking about a remnant, but then Isaiah picks it up, and then
big
later
time,
prophets. Yeah. So what's happened historically is in the nation of Israel, at some point, God chooses not to take the whole nation, but to take a remnant from that nation. And it sounds like it starts happening about 700 BC. Okay. And then actually, New Testament believers are also a part of that remnant, I would say. So that remnant gets started in like 700 BC, but then carries on into the future, and we're part of that. At least that's how I understand it.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, now we've got the last two chapters. We've got it's going to talk about two things: the corruption of Israel, and then it's also going to talk, and it's going to tell how bad it gets. But then at the end, there's going to be a message of restoration again. Okay, so that's what we got to look forward to. So here's what it says in Micah 6, 1-5. Hear now what the Lord is saying. Arise, plead your case before the mountains, and let the hills hear your voice. Listen, you mountains, to the indictment of the Lord, you who you enduring foundations of the earth, because the Lord has a case against his people, even with Israel, his dispute. My people, what have I done to you, and how have I wearied you? Answer me. Indeed, I brought you up from the land of Egypt and ransomed you from the house of slavery. And I sent you before you Moses and Aaron and Miriam. My people, remember how now that what Balak, king of Moab, counseled, and what Balaam the son of Beor answered him, and from Shittim to Gilgal, so that you know the righteous acts of the Lord. So basically what he's doing, he's going through history and explaining how God was guiding them through history. Okay. Okay. All right. Let's look at the next section. So now he said, okay, so that's how God has provided for them. Now he says, based upon that, here's how you should act. So the next part is telling them how they're supposed to respond. So here's what it says. With what did I come to the Lord and bow myself before the God on high? Shall I come to him with burnt offerings or yearling calves? Does the Lord take delight in thousands of rams or in 10,000 rivers of oil? Shall I present my firstborn for my rebellious acts and the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? He has told you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require from you, but to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God. So notice he makes it real clear. He goes and says, now some scholars have looked at this and said, well, look, Micah doesn't, God is the one that required these things of him. And now Micah's saying that you don't need to do that. Well, I don't think that's what it means. It's actually saying there's a heart attitude that's important, that when you offered sacrifices, it was because you had the right heart attitude, not just because you wanted to get something from God. So I think that's what that's getting at. So it's not saying that he didn't require sacrifices and he didn't require thousands of rivers of oil and stuff like that. But what he did require is the right heart attitude when you did those sacrifices.
Yeah, because they're meaningless without the right heart.
Yeah. And we heard that in Isaiah too. So Micah and Isaiah are saying exactly the same thing here. All right. Then here's God's got a sentence against Israel. You will eat, but you will not be satisfied. Your vileness will be in your midst. You will try to remove for safekeeping, but you will not preserve anything. And what you will preserve, I will give to the sword. You will sow, but you will not reap. You will tread the olive, but you will not anoint yourself with oil, and the grapes, but you will not drink wine. The statutes of Omri and the works of the house of Ahab are observed, and all their devices, and in their devices you walk. Probably two of the worst kings of the northern kingdom would be Ahab and Omri, and those were like the epitome of the worst kind of kings you could have, and the most sinful. And so he's saying, you guys are walking in those. Therefore, I will give you up to destruction and your inhabitants for derision, and you will bear the reproach of my people. So he's saying, you're going to eat, but you're not going to be filled. I'm going to take it away, and then you can tread out the grapes, but I'm going to give them to somebody else that's going to take over. So he's saying, this is the punishment that God's got for them.
Yeah.
All right. He actually, in chapter 7 is actually really neat. Look how that says, woe is me, for I'm like a fruit picker, like a grape gatherer. There is not a cluster of grapes to eat or a first ripe fig which I crave. So he's saying that, here's somebody going through and reaping the harvest, and he's saying, there's not a good nothing. Grape out there. So he's saying, and I assume this is, he's going to tell us there, the godly person has perished from the land, and there's no upright person among men. So he says, you're so corrupt, there's not even a decent person among you all. So if they were worried that God was punishing them for no reason, he makes it real clear. I'm not punishing you for no reason. I'm punishing you because there is a very good reason for punishing you.
Right.
Okay? All of them lie in wait for bloodshed. Each of them hunts the other with a net. Concerning evil, both hands do it well. I think that's a cute phrase. So they're ambidextrous in doing their sins. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The prince asked, also the judge, for a bribe, and a great man speaks the desire of his soul. So they weave it together. So what's happening is the rich people and the people that have power are working together to rip people off.
Collusion.
Yeah. The best of them is like a briar, and the most upright like a thorn hedge. Yeah, I've been spending time trying to get the weeds out of my yard, and he's saying the best of the people in Israel and Judah are like briars and thorns. Yeah. All right. So if they wondered if they were worthy of judgment, he's making that real clear. And then here's the last part. The last part is the restoration. From verses 7 through 10 or 20. So here's what it says. But as for me, I watch expectantly for the Lord. I will wait for the God of my salvation. My God will hear me. So here's Micah, who has hope that God is going to listen to his prayer and deliver them. Do not rejoice over me, O my enemy. Though I fall, I will rise. Though I dwell in darkness, the Lord is a light for me. I will bear the indignation of the Lord because I have sinned against him, until he pleads my case and executes justice for me. He will bring me out to the light, and I will see his righteousness. Then my enemy will see, and shame will cover her who said to me, where is your God, the Lord your God? It will be a day for building of walls. On that day, the boundary will be extended. It will be a day when they will come to you from Assyria and the cities of Egypt, from Egypt even to the Euphrates, even from sea to sea and mountain to mountain. So that's talking about a remnant returning from all these places. So he's saying one of these days, Israel's going to be built up, or my people are going to be built up, and they're going to come from all kinds of different places, and they're going to be a remnant for me.
Yeah.
Nations will see and be ashamed. All of their might, they will put their hand on their mouth, and their ears will be deaf. They will lick the dust like a serpent. Like reptiles of the earth, they will come trembling out of their fortress to the Lord their God. They will come in dread, and they will be afraid before you. Who is a God like you, who pardons iniquity and passes over rebellious acts of the remnant of his possession? He does not retain his anger forever, because he delights in unchanging love. So let me just stop there. Notice he's actually saying that when this restoration starts happening, other people are going to see it, and they're going to look at this, their God, and say, oh man, that Yahweh is an amazing God, because he looks over all their transgressions and he pardons them and he brings them back. And even he delights in unchanging love. That's a neat phrase, meaning that he said he was going to do it, and he is going to do it. Okay. All right. Then it ends. He will again have compassion on us. He will tread our iniquities under our feet. Yes, you will cast their sins into the depths of the sea. You will give truth to Jacob and unchanging love to Abraham, which he swore to your forefathers from the days of old. That's where that unchanging love comes in. He's made these promises to Abraham and Jacob, and now he's making sure it happens. So do you see how it ends? So it ends with this message that God, even though Israel sinned, it's not going to stop God's plan for them.
Right. Yeah, it's a very
All
hopeful
right,
message at the end, really.
Yeah. All right. So here's some conclusions. God is concerned about social injustice, like the poor people being ripped off and stuff like that. Part of that was what he was going to. So, and it's something that other people can't hold someone else responsible for. Like, who holds a king or rich person responsible for not feeding the poor? Right. Nobody, right? Because they're the most powerful people. So, but God does. And that's what he's saying here. He's saying, I'm the one that actually cares for the poor and that. Case number 2, God has a plan for the future of Israel, which looks much different than the present situation. Remember the now versus the future? Yeah.
Yeah, right.
God is going to shepherd his people. And then number 4, who is like God, who pardons iniquities? That's a pretty important message for that whole book. And then last one, God's punishments are very real.
Yeah.
And they're feeling them. All right, here's my questions. How does Micah see the future?
I think you made a pretty good argument. It certainly seems like he doesn't necessarily know exact dates things are going to happen, but that certain events are going to come to pass at some point in the future, and that those things are related.
Okay. And what's the situation like now for them?
What do you mean? For
the nation who he's talking to. So Micah would be at that point the people in the 700s.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, they've got a bad situation right now. They're kind of about to enter. They're getting warnings that they're about to enter exile if they don't change, and that like a punishment is imminent, but that there is future restoration.
Good. That's what I wanted to hear. Okay. What is Israel being held responsible for?
Interesting here. A lot of evil done by leaders, prophets, by prominent people in Israel. They're doing egregiously wrong things, and that's going to have an impact on the whole everybody, and probably even the land. That's the kind of thing we talked about last week, that it's kind of exhaustive in a way. Like, their evil brings punishment to everybody.
Yeah. Okay. How is God going to shepherd his people? How is it different from the present leaders?
Yeah, well, justice is going to be a very important part of that. Mercy as well. There's, of course, I mean, just like we got in just the very last few verses there, like, God does separate iniquity from his people. That doesn't mean there's no consequences for sin, but that there is kind of a sense of mercy that's going to define this. And it's also something that's going to be very publicly a public good in a way. Like, other nations are going to see this and be like, God is great. And that's not happening for Israel now.
Yeah. Let me actually, one last thing also is when he talks about who is a God like you who pardons iniquity? God just can't look over iniquity, can he? So what he does, he pardons it. How is he going to pardon it?
Well, we know now it's like through the Messiah.
Exactly. That's what I wanted to hear. So he just can't overlook iniquity, but what he can do is send his son to die for that iniquity and pay the penalty.
He can solve it.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Okay. What do we learn about God in this passage?
Yeah, I think we do see the depth of his mercy here. That there is, I mean, of course, justice is an important part of that, and those things are intrinsically related in ways we probably can't even really pick them apart. But that God is both merciful and just, and like the wrong is going to be made right, but also that God is going to forgive his people and bless them.
Yeah. One other thing is the length of time is a lot longer than they ever expect it's going to be, isn't it?
Sure. I mean,
God's plan throughout all of history ends with someday setting up his kingdom and all that. But it started clear back in Genesis, and that plan has been gradually working its way out all the way through history. Yeah. Okay, one more. What have we learned about Israel or people in general?
Oh man, not much good. We really,
Okay.
we kind of bend towards evil and selfishness. I mentioned before the podcast that I'm teaching a lesson on David and Nathan soon for our youth group at church. And I've been thinking a lot about what exactly David did wrong, and an important aspect of it, especially in Nathan's story that he uses to confront David, is that you have a rich man, he steals from a poor man, and that's kind of metaphorically David stealing Bathsheba from Uriah, right?
Right.
But the next section, of course, you get more details, and it's like, Nathan's like, you also killed Uriah, and an interesting section, and there's probably 2 verses where Nathan is saying, kind of in in God's voice, like, I blessed you, I gave you everything, you got the throne, you got all of everything that Saul had, and I would have given you more. Like there wasn't like a limit to what I could give you, but you decided you wanted something else. And I do think that's probably somehow related to this, that there's things that we want, maybe we want them because we're afraid, or we don't think God is actually going to take care of us or something like that. And so these acts can be driven by maybe some real emotional fears or whatever, but they're an act of like non-faith. They're statements that say, I don't believe God is going to care for us. And I just think that section in Micah where we got like that the people are waiting, like they're taking each other, they're throwing nets on each other, they're kind of devouring each other, probably not literally, but that they're totally turned on each other. Even that to me speaks to like a complete lack of faith that God is going to care for them.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. What do you think about the book of Micah?
It's very very interesting. I hadn't really quite put together how much Isaiah uses Micah, which is very interesting. Thematically, you can see a lot of connections there. Of course, we talked through like the idea of the remnant, and that God is going to punish and restore. That these things are present there. It's a really fascinating. It's very fascinating, and also very interesting that Jeremiah is kind of dependent on it. And the reason that works for Jeremiah to like kind of defend himself is that the people of Israel recognized at that point that what Micah said was true, that it was right, which is it's very interesting that, it's been absorbed into the culture at that point. This is the word of God, and they recognize that.
Isn't it so? So it seems like to me these prophets have some amazing stories to teach, and you're right. It would make perfect sense for Isaiah and Micah to say quite similar things because they're in time wise they're fairly close to one another too. So it makes sense.
Yeah.
So well, that's it.
It's a great book.
We've got that this time. Next time we're starting on Isaiah. So.
All right. Again, starting again on Isaiah.
Yeah.
That's great. That sounds good.
All right. We'll see you next week.
Yeah. Thanks for your time, Dr. Wagner.
Bye-bye.